What's going on, Collider Games fans? I'm Caboose, and today what I got for you guys here is some more tips and tricks for Apex Legends. In our first tips and tricks video here on Collider Games, we covered over some general tips that would help you out in the beginnings of your time with this game. You know, when you first started to play the game. These tips are going to be for the more advanced players out there, for the people who have won quite a bit of games. These are going to be the advanced tips that help you from getting to be a good player to a great player. So let's kick things off with a legend that would cause you quite a bit of pain if you were to be going against them. There was in fact a situation I was in which there was 3 separate teams I had to deal with 3 separate Caustics. He is a very difficult legend to play against, although when you see him, because of that large hitbox, this legend goes down quick. But those traps can cause you quite a bit of a problem, and the way that you can avoid this is very simple. You just got to shoot Caustic's traps from the very bottom piece that attaches it to the floor, not the actual red part that is at the base of the trap itself. And this was a misconception going around on the Reddit page for Apex Legends that you were supposed to shoot that red part. That is not the case. Shooting that red part will still set off the trap. What you are supposed to do to get rid of a Caustic trap completely without it going off at all is just to shoot the very bottom piece of it. Once you do that, you will see that it just collapses, goes away, and you can move freely in the environment. On the flip side, playing as a Caustic, you can do quite a bit of damage using these things by one simple tip, and that's throwing your traps in front or on the other side of doors. These can also help delay your opponents from getting into areas that you may need to stay in to get a bit of defense, to heal up for a moment. It can be extremely useful to use your Caustic traps to block doors. Now, if you're not playing as Caustic, you can also just body block a door yourself. Just stand on either end of it, and that will prevent your opponent from being able to then open the door. This can be extremely useful in multiple ways. Number one, if you're trying to get a heal off, find a one-way entry, get on the other side of that door, and then heal yourself to avoid the opponent from opening up and shooting the hell out of you. Then you will notice that there are times where they try to kick down the door, and that will be the only way that they can get through to the other side. But what you can do here to use this to your advantage is after you hear that first kick and are expecting the second one, open the door yourself. They'll be in the middle of the melee animation and they won't be expecting you to get ready to attack, and that'll allow you just a split second to start getting damage in first on your opponent, and that could be the factor to you taking them down instead of them taking you down. We're still on the topic of doors. The Wingman is one of the best weapons in the game. It has a really good damage output, and it very much rewards players who have extremely good aim. And there's one thing that you can do with the Wingman that I think is super underrated. You can actually shoot doors open by shooting at the hinges or the doorknob area with the Wingman. What this can allow you to do is a very situational thing, I understand, but it can still be very useful. When you are in a bit of a firefight and you see that an opponent would run into a building, your option then becomes to run up and get inside if you are an aggressive player who wants to take that person out. But a good way to kind of scout first on what your path would be to head inside is to shoot that door open if you have a Wingman in your possession and get a look down the hallway inside that building. You'll then have an understanding of whether or not the opponent is right there in front of you or whether they're potentially hiding around a corner, and you have a bit more of a game plan when heading into that building rather than just running in, holding that W key, as some PC players would say, trying to find and hunt down that person. My next tip has to do with advanced pinging. A lot of people know and understand exactly how the ping system works in Apex Legends. You can ping a location, you can ping an enemy, but there are a lot of different ways you can ping certain things, like specific things in your inventory, to help communicate what you may need with your team. Now, I know a lot of the more advanced players out there are usually playing with a consistent team, but say you're in a scenario where your buddy gets offline and it's you and your friend and one random. You got to help communicate with that random as best as you possibly can everything they need to know about what's going on, whether you need healing, whether you need ammo and all that. And you can do all that with the ping system. For instance, if you need any sort of healing item, pull up the wheel that shows your different healing items and just hit the ping button on your med kit, syringes, shield batteries, whatever it may be, and the call out will then be made to your team that you need that specific thing. This can help if you find that you have a lifeline on your team that doesn't have a mic and you need them to drop their heal drone. Just ping one of the healing items and your character will say, I need healing, and that can help maybe remind them, hey, drop the heal drone for the teammates. You can also go into your inventory and hover over the ammo type that is shown that is selected for the weapon you have equipped, and then ping that. That will then send out a message to your team that you need that specific ammo type, which is great, and you can even do that for the attachments of your gun as well. So utilize the ping system more than just showing a location that you want to head towards or pinging an enemy that you may have seen, because there are a lot of different ways you can communicate in this game, and there are things that we need to take advantage of with how good the ping system is in Apex Legends. My next tip is a backwards slide. Now, pretty much everyone knows that in Apex Legends you have the ability to slide, and when you're going down a downward slope, whether that's a hill or some stairs, sliding down it causes you to go extremely fast, and it allows you to go sliding down for quite a long time. What some people might not know or might not take advantage of is the fact that you can go into a jump, hit the crouch button to get ready for a slide, and then turn around so that you're sliding backwards essentially down the hill. This will help you in a very situational sense where maybe there's some people shooting at you and you need to evade, but you can also potentially get some shots in as you're making your escape down that hill, down those stairs, wherever it may be. So head down a slide, turn around as quick as you can, and get some shots in before you make that getaway. My second to last tip has to do with keeping track of how many enemies are left in the game. Now this one can be a little bit difficult. However, if you're playing a little more passive and you can pay attention to this, do so when the opportunity presents itself. You'll notice in the top right that at a point, it'll show you when players are remaining less than 10, just a question mark. However, note that it only shows the question mark when there are less than 10 players remaining, so you can still keep track of this. Let's say you look at the top right and you see that there are just exactly 10 players left. Once it flashes red and it turns into a question mark, you know that we're down to 9. But you can also pay attention to the kill feed. You can see if people are getting knocked down, and then that way you'll have an understanding of whether or not a full squad got killed or just one person. So you can help keep track of how many players are going to be left in the game through this, and it'll help you when you get to a scenario where maybe there are only 2 other squads left and you're kind of working with your team of what the strategy is to either play defensively or play on the attack, to know how many people are left on both of those teams. Or even if you're in that squad v squad scenario where you're just about to get that victory, it's always good to potentially know how many people are left on the other squad. And for my final tip, it is about high tier loot locations. There are a lot of places that you can drop on Apex Legends map that feature quite a bit of good loot. However, there are specific POIs that are considered high tier loot zones. And then every time you load into a game, there will be one area on the map randomly selected to be the hot zone. What the hot zone does is it basically increases the loot that would be in that area, as well as guarantees you a golden item. Now, it doesn't range what the golden item could be. In fact, sometimes that golden item could literally just be a turbocharger, but most of the time it'll end up being something like a gold knockdown shield, or maybe even a gold fully kitted weapon, and you might even come to find that there are 2 golden items in a hot zone. The best case scenario is when a high tier loot location ends up being the hot zone, because then you get the best of both worlds. Especially if you're an aggressive player, you'll see that a lot of people end up landing in those areas. Now, I've created a little graphic here that you're seeing on screen, and this is highlighting all the high tier loot areas on the map, including some of the areas that aren't specific POIs. You have Watchtower North and Watchtower South, both considered high tier loot zones as well. I'm also going to show you guys a graphic here of some great paths to run from specific high tier loot zones to get to other ones to help your team get fully kitted or get involved in engagements very quickly. My favorite is to run from airbase, run off the pit and bunker, or within that overall vicinity, as you can get quite a bit of loot, including that little town there right next to airbase. It can get you a lot of loot for your team, and you can get a lot of engagements through this as well. Another great path to run is either from artillery or repulsor to the respective watchtower that's just nearby, and there are plenty of other ways that you can learn to maneuver around this map to get your team quite a bit of loot and in quite a bit of engagements, especially if you're one of those teams that likes to play a little more aggressive as some of the more advanced players would. And that's going to bring the advanced tips and tricks video that I have for you today to an end. I hope it was informative, and if you did enjoy this video, a positive rating would be appreciated, and you can subscribe to the Collider Games channel for more gaming coverage. I've been Caboose, and I'll see you guys later.